photo report. Daniel Vallis here again, checking in, and I just want to share with you, I was able to take some pictures tonight. The Lord answered prayer, and I had a beautiful, clear sky this evening, and was able to get some pictures so we could have a live verification of what we've been talking about. It's one thing to look in Stellarium and on the astronomy programs and all that, but it's another thing to actually go outside, look at the sign, and verify. What do we see? What does the whole world see? And so I was able to go out and get some pictures and share it with you tonight. And it does definitely make me excited what I saw. And I hope you've been taking the opportunity to go outside and look at it about an hour after sunset and just look at it and visually see it and just really drive home the reality of this sign is happening right now. So this was about shortly after 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can see it's still pretty bright outside. But this is the amazing thing about this Shiloh sign. Even with as bright as it is now, I knew I could identify at least with my eye where Jupiter was, because it's so bright. And if you have a really sharp eye and you have your high definition video going, you could probably spot the little tiny speck of Jupiter in this even bright sky right now. There it is. And you can just follow the tree branch down to it. But here, as bright as the sky is right now, Jupiter is already standing out, drawing your attention to it because it's the only thing in the sky nice and shiny and bright. And if we zoom in a little bit, we could see how it stands out just from the other blueness, and then zoom in a little bit more. It's a pretty bright light. Now, this next object is not Jupiter. This is the moon. And this is causing some slight problems because it's getting brighter. It's approaching a full moon, not quite there yet, but it is lighting up the night sky, which makes it a little harder to see some of the smaller stars. You just have to wait outside about 20 minutes and your eyes will get really adjusted and you'll be able to see a lot of the smaller stars and fainter stars really well. But the moon right now is at 85% in Jerusalem, and it's going to be a full moon on the 20th over there. So it's going to be getting brighter and brighter, which means it is going to be a little harder to see some of the fainter details just for the average person without binoculars or a zoom-in optical camera or something. But then when I went back outside, about 9:15, I believe, Central Standard Time again, you could definitely see Leo right there on the horizon. Nice and bright. The stars are readily identifiable, at least the main form that I've been using a lot on the artwork. But then if you let your eyes focus over time, you could see some of the secondary stars that we recently included on the Sign in Shiloh sheet as well. And just by visual identification, just standing out in the field with your naked eye, you could see that Jupiter is right at the foot, the hind foot, one of the brightest parts of the hind foot, but it is on the leftward side of it if you just follow that portion of the leg straight down. But there is more to the leg, as we saw in our last video and on the Sign in Shiloh sheet. And so if we zoom in, and I just have just a plain old camera from Best Buy. It's probably about 5 or 6 years old, just has about a 15x optical zoom, nothing fancy. So you could readily see this detail with binoculars. But this is just zoomed in on the hind leg portion. And as we looked at today, here's the reference for the additional 2 stars toward the left of Jupiter that are also part of the constellation and also considered part of the hind leg. So looking at them, when you look just visually, your mind says, wait a minute. When we take those into consideration, Jupiter is still right in the middle of the leg. And if we draw out some lines, just by looking at that, using it as a border, if you want to be that technical, Jupiter is still within the hind feet. And inside, in between all 4 feet too as well. So it is interesting to make this observation right now that technically you can still say that Jupiter is within the feet of the constellation Leo. And this is why we visually check, because we can see things and note things, and that causes us to explore more and get curious. And the Lord wants us to see all these little details. So then if we zoom in a little bit more, here it is zoomed up way up close. We can be more for sure. Here it is on Stellarium again, just for reference. And here's the 3 major end stars of the hind foot. And Jupiter is right within, still, if you wanted to be technical, within the border of the hind feet. And we looked at Stellarium today for the 16th, just looking forward. We don't have pictures for there yet. But if we connected all the dots on the hind leg portion of all the stars, if we wanted to be technical, it is still be between the feet on the 16th. And you got to keep in mind, though, it's already the 16th in a lot of the portions of the world now. And the stellarium shots we studied in our last video were taken from Jerusalem, so they are quite a number of hours ahead of me for sure, here in America, Central Standard Time Zone. So you could see on the 16th from Jerusalem, it's already passing that border. And if we advance to the 17th and just do a guesstimate from Jerusalem again, it would be right on the line, right on the border there. So that's just on the 17th in Jerusalem, just a few hours away. Very interesting. And of course, if we advance to the 18th in Jerusalem, it's on the other side of the leg. So if we wanted to be technical and you wanted to use the lines as a border, right now it is still within, and within a few hours it will be without. This weekend looks like it's going to be a very interesting time. And as we talked about on the sheet today, the further we go forward, the more it's going to be away from the leg. So it is interesting that over the next few hours, the next 2 days, really the next day, it's going to be some prime time. So definitely print out these sheets, study them, and definitely study the Be Ye Ready and go through it, because this is getting pretty serious. The Lord is continuing to draw our attention, giving us opportunities to see and study this sign and learn more about it and study the tapestry of redemption. So we find ourselves in a very amazing time. We do not know the day or hour, but we know we are right at the finish line. We are right at some very serious prime time where we need to be sober. We need to be very serious and focused and make sure that we are ready. Be in prayer. Be close to God. Make sure we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, because time is running out. And He is calling us to draw nigh to Him at this time. And there's a lot of events going on in the world right now, too. You don't need me to tell you that. Just turn on the news. Interesting events in Turkey, and then the events this weekend with Reset in Washington, D.C. with the whole blue and purple and red and thing. It is going to be interesting when we looked at just the forecast for the next 2 days of what Shiloh is going to be at right at the border there. It is interesting timing to see that reset right for that borderline finish. I don't know the future, but it is looking like it'll be a very interesting weekend. And again, we do not know the future, but it would be interesting to see how they planned it, that there are probably a lot of people there at that event who are not ready spiritually and or where they should be either, but it would make an interesting excuse to suddenly have a whole mall full of Christians, quote unquote, and we have to use that loosely, of who were not raptured, and that would be a really good way to excuse away the rapture, because look, you have a whole mall full of Christians. So it's going to be an interesting weekend. So maybe watch this video again, just look at the photos that we took, and definitely ask the Lord for wisdom and insight of what you should be doing, review the material, and most importantly, lift up your heads, for our redemption draweth nigh. Serve Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.